The mansion carried the sharp scent of lemon polish, mixed with something darker. Maybe the smell of old money, or the kind of silence that only exists in places that have buried too many secrets. Olivia Bennet dragged a heavy vacuum cleaner across marble floors, so glossy they reflected the crystal chandeliers on the ceiling like mirrors. Each pull left a dull streak that disappeared in an instant. Her shoulders ached. Her hands burned from bleach and scrubbing, but she kept going, head down, invisible, the way she had learned to be over 3 weeks of working here. Finish the shift, take the money, go home. That spell had become her lifeline, repeated with every breath, every mechanical movement. She needed this job more than she needed air. The pay was unnaturally high, so high it should have been the first warning sign. But when you are 2 months behind on rent, and the eviction notice is taped to your door like a verdict, you do not ask why a cleaning job pays 3 times the market rate. You just show up, work hard, and pray they do not find a reason to fire you. The other staff did not talk much. Mr. Patterson, the staff manager, communicated mostly in clipped orders and dissatisfied looks. The cook, Olivia still did not know. His name worked behind the kitchen's closed door, appearing only to carry food and vanish into rooms she was not allowed to enter. Then there were the guards. There were always guards, stationed at every entrance and exit with blank faces and eyes that watched everything. Olivia did not know exactly who owned this place. People called him Mr. Callahan, but they always whispered it, always with a tone that lived somewhere between respect and fear. She had never seen him. Her shifts were arranged carefully for hours when the owner was away. Handling business she suspected had nothing to do with anything legal. Beacon Hill alone told the story. This was not just wealth. This was fortress wealth, the kind that came with 14-foot walls, security cameras on every corner, and men in black suits carrying guns they barely bothered to hide under expensive coats. Olivia had watched enough crime shows to recognize the signs, but desperation made her willfully blind. She was wiping down the 3rd-floor hallway when she heard it. A sound so small she almost missed it under the vacuum's roar. A whimper, tiny and terrified, like a wounded animal. Olivia's hand froze on the power switch. Do not investigate. That was rule number 1. Mr. Patterson had made it clear on the first day. Stay in your assigned area. Do not wander. Do not ask questions. Do not interfere. The sound came again, more desperate. Olivia turned off the vacuum. The silence afterward felt heavy, as if the air itself knew she had broken a rule. Her heart pounded as she followed the sound to a door she had been explicitly told never to open. A white door with a hand-drawn rainbow, cheerful in a way that felt out of place in the mansion's gloom. Another whimper, then something breaking. Olivia's hand was on the knob before reason could stop it. It turned easily, unlocked, which surprised her, and she pushed the door open just enough to look inside. The room was a paradox. Pastel pink walls, carefully padded, toys lined up like soldiers on white shelves, a small bed with princess sheets, and no fewer than 7 stuffed animals arranged in a specific order. Everything clean, everything perfect, everything screaming that a child lived inside this beautiful cage. And in the middle of it all, a little girl, maybe 4 or 5, sat on the floor, rocking back and forth, both hands pressed tight over her ears. Tears ran down her tiny face, but she made no sound except soft, broken moans. Around her, puzzle pieces lay scattered like a chaotic constellation, the source of the crash Olivia had heard. The child wore a white dress with yellow flowers, neat except for a small juice stain at the collar. Her black hair was braided into 2 tidy plaits, and her eyes, brown, wide, full of panic, locked on the scattered pieces with an intensity that tightened Olivia's chest. Olivia had seen this before. A different child, a different life, but the same overload, the same silent pain. Sophie, her little sister. Before the accident took Sophie and their parents in one horrific night of twisted metal and shattered glass. "Hey," Olivia said softly, kneeling at the threshold. Not stepping in, not invading the girl's space, just being present. It is so frustrating, is it not, when things will not stay where they belong. The girl did not look at her, did not even glance her way, but the rocking slowed a little. "I hate when that happens too," Olivia continued, her voice only a breath above a whisper. "When I am trying to do something, and everything falls apart. It makes my head so loud, you know. Like there is static where thoughts are supposed to be." The girl's hands lowered slightly from her ears. "Can I tell you a secret?" Olivia said, sitting more comfortably on the floor, still keeping her distance. "I love puzzles too, but sometimes my hands will not cooperate. Sometimes I drop things, then I get upset, then I drop more things. It is like a mean spiral." The girl stopped rocking completely. She did not look at Olivia, her eyes still fixed on the scattered pieces, but she was listening. Olivia could tell by the slight tilt of her head, by the breathing that had begun to steady. "Can I sit here while you fix it?" Olivia asked. "I will not touch anything. I promise. I will just sit here and keep you company. Sometimes hard things feel harder when someone is not close by." Silence stretched, measured in heartbeats. Then, so slowly, Olivia almost missed it, the girl reached for a piece. Tiny fingers lifted it carefully, examined it, then placed it into the right spot with a soft click that sounded like relief. Another piece. Another click. Olivia stayed still, almost holding her breath as the girl rebuilt the broken order, one piece at a time. She worked from the outside in, finishing the frame before filling the middle, a strategy that told Olivia this was habit, practice. When the last piece slipped into place, the girl sat back and looked at the finished picture, a cartoon princess, bright and smiling. Then, for the first time since Olivia opened the door, the girl turned and looked at her. Their eyes met. Something passed between them. Recognition, maybe. Understanding. The acknowledgement that some people live in a world that needs translating, and sometimes, rare and precious, you find someone who speaks the same language. The girl's lips moved, closed, opened again. "Thank you." 2 words that were almost not words at all, as if they had been pulled up from somewhere deep and seldom touched. Olivia's breath caught. "You are welcome," Olivia whispered. The girl looked at the puzzle, then at Olivia, then at the puzzle again. Her hands patted lightly against her chest. A self-soothing gesture Olivia recognized instantly. You did not touch," the girl said. "I promised," Olivia said. "Everyone touches." The girl's voice carried weight beyond her years, threaded with frustration and resignation. "They say let me help, but they do not ask first. They just touch." How many well-meaning caregivers had invaded her space? How many people had tried to help without realizing that, for some children, unasked help feels like an attack? "That must be so hard," Olivia said gently. "When people do not ask first." The girl nodded, a quick movement that made her braids swing. "You asked, because this is your puzzle, your space, your decision." Something shifted in the girl's expression. Surprise, maybe. Or wonder. She watched Olivia with an intensity you could almost feel. Big brown eyes recording every detail of her face. "My name is Lily," the girl said abruptly. "Lily Callahan. I am Olivia." "Olivia," the girl repeated, tasting each syllable. "You are the new cleaner." "That is right. I hear you through the door every Tuesday and Thursday. You hum when you work." She tilted her head. The same song, over and over. Olivia's cheeks warmed. She had not realized she was humming. Had not known anyone was listening. "It is my sister's favorite song," Olivia said quietly. "Humming it makes me feel like she is still close." "Is she dead?" the girl asked. The blunt question should have shocked Olivia, but she recognized it for what it was. Not cruelty. Honesty. The absence of social filters that makes some conversations easier and others impossible. "Yes," Olivia said simply. "She died 2 years ago. A car accident." "I am sorry," the girl said with careful formality, as if she had been taught the right response without fully understanding the feeling behind it. "Death is forever. It means they cannot come back." "That is right. But you still hum her song. So maybe she is still here a little," Lily said. "Inside the song." Olivia's eyes stung with sudden tears. "Yes, maybe she is." Lily stood up, her movements still careful and deliberate, and walked to one of the neatly arranged toy shelves. She chose a stuffed rabbit, gray with pink ears, then turned back and held it out to Olivia with both hands like an offering. "This is Mr. Whiskers. He helps me when I am sad." She pushed the rabbit toward Olivia insistently. "You hold him while you miss your sister." Olivia took the rabbit with trembling hands. She understood the importance of what Lily had just done. This child, who disliked being touched, who lived inside carefully controlled order, had just shared her comfort object with a stranger. "Thank you, Lily," Olivia whispered. "You are so kind." Lily nodded, satisfied, then turned back to the puzzle. She began taking it apart methodically, one piece at a time. And Olivia realized this was her routine. The silence stretched like a taut violin string, pulled so tight it was about to snap. Olivia stood frozen, still clutching Mr. Whiskers in both hands, feeling as if time had stopped inside the small room drenched in pastel pink. Dominic Callahan stood in the doorway, tall and imposing, gray eyes cold as a winter storm as they swept across every face in the room. He looked at Maggie Reeves, gone pale. He looked at Lily, trembling beside the completed puzzle. Then he looked at Olivia, a cleaning girl holding his daughter's most precious possession, as if it were the only shield between her and death. No one dared speak. No one dared breathe too loudly. Then the impossible happened. Lily ran. She bolted toward her father with a speed that made Maggie suck in a startled breath. Small feet flew over the wooden floor, black braids streaming behind her, and she crashed into Dominic's legs, wrapping her tiny arms around him as if she feared he might vanish. "Papa." Lily's voice rang out, trembling, yet strangely clear. "Papa. I need to tell Papa." Dominic went still for 1 second, 2, as if he could not believe what was happening. Then he knelt, slowly, carefully, until his eyes were level with his daughter's. And in that moment, Olivia witnessed a complete transformation. The man with the deadly aura, the voice like black velvet and restrained violence, suddenly became soft in a way she would never have believed. His large, scarred hands rested gently on Lily's shoulders, and his voice changed completely, turning warm, low, tender, as if he were speaking to the most precious thing in the world. "Easy, Piccola," he murmured. "Breathe. Tell Papa slowly." Lily took a deep breath, her small chest rising and falling. "My puzzle fell apart," she began, her voice still shaking but each word clear. "All the pieces fell out, and my brain got too loud, and I got scared, and I did not know how to fix it. Then Olivia came." Dominic did not speak. He only gave a small nod, urging his daughter to continue. "She did not come into my room," Lily went on, wide brown eyes locked on her father's face. "She sat in the doorway and asked if I wanted her here. She promised she would not touch anything, and she kept her promise. Papa, she did not touch unless I said she could." Dominic blinked once, then again. Something crossed his stone-hard face, too fast for Olivia to name, but enough for her to realize this was not what he had expected. "She understands puzzles, Papa," Lily continued, her voice growing more urgent. "She understands why my brain gets loud. She did not say I was broken. She did not try to fix me." Tears streamed down the little girl's cheeks, but her voice stayed steady in a way that felt impossible. "She is the only one who treats me like a person, Papa. The only one." The room sank into a heavy silence. Maggie Reeves stood like carved stone, her face drained of color. Olivia did not dare move, did not dare breathe, her heart pounding as if it might break through her ribs. Dominic stared at his daughter for a long time, his gray eyes no longer cold, but holding something deep, complicated, painful. Then he lifted a hand and used his thumb to wipe Lily's tears with a gentleness that did not match his dangerous exterior at all. "Papa needs to talk to Olivia," he said quietly. "Can you go with Maggie for a little while? 5 minutes." "No." Lily shook her head hard. "Papa will send her away. I know it. Everyone gets sent away." "Papa promises," Dominic said, his voice firm as steel. "Papa promises he will not send anyone away before we finish talking. 5 minutes. Then you come back." Lily looked at her father, then at Olivia, then back at her father. She seemed to be weighing, measuring, deciding whether she could trust that promise. Finally, she nodded, a small motion full of reluctance. "Okay, but Papa has to keep his word. Always, Piccola." Dominic pressed a light kiss to his daughter's forehead. "Papa always keeps his word with you." Lily let Maggie lead her out of the room, but she looked back at Olivia 3 times before the door closed, each glance a silent plea. And then Olivia was alone with Dominic Callahan, the mafia boss whose name was whispered in fear, in his daughter's rainbow room, still clutching the stuffed rabbit as if her life depended on it. The door closed with a soft click, but the sound rang in Olivia's head like the snap of a trap. She stood there with her back against the wall, fingers clenched in Mr. Whisker's soft fur until her knuckles turned white. Dominic Callahan did not speak. He simply stood there, in the middle of a pastel-pink room filled with neatly lined stuffed animals, and watched her. His gray eyes moved slowly, from her tousled chestnut hair, down to her hands reddened by bleach, to the worn shoes she had been wearing for 2 years. That gaze missed nothing. It was as if he were taking her apart layer by layer, searching for something hidden underneath. Olivia felt naked under that look, even though she was still wearing her cleaning uniform. "What is your name?" Dominic's voice landed, not a question, but an order. Low, cold, sharp as a blade. "Olivia Bennett, sir," Olivia answered, her voice trembling slightly despite her effort to control it. "Olivia Bennett." He repeated it as if tasting each syllable. "How long have you worked here?" 3 weeks, sir. Tuesdays and Thursdays. Cleaning the 3rd and 4th floors. And you know this room is forbidden." It was not a question. It was a statement. Olivia swallowed, her throat dry and bitter. "Yes, sir. I know. Mr. Patterson made it clear on the first day. And yet you still went in." "I heard her crying," Olivia said, her voice smaller now but steady. "I could not walk away." Dominic tilted his head slightly, a small movement that felt calculated. He stepped toward her, each stride slow and even, like a predator measuring its prey. Olivia wanted to back up, wanted to run, but the wall was already behind her and her feet felt rooted to the floor. "Do you know who I am?" He stopped less than 3 feet away. "Do you know what I do?" Olivia's heart hammered like a war drum. She could lie. She could pretend she was naive. But something in those gray eyes told her lying would be a deadly mistake. "I have my suspicions, sir," she said honestly. "I do not know the details, but I am not blind." Suspicions. Dominic repeated the word, one corner of his mouth lifting into something that might have been a smile, or might have been a warning. "Smart. And with those suspicions, you still took the job." "I needed the money, sir." Olivia chose the truth, deciding it was the safest path. "I owe 2 months of rent. I am about to be evicted. I have no family, no one to help, no other choice. When people are desperate, they do not ask many questions." Dominic stared at her for a long time, his gray eyes unblinking. Then he pulled his phone from his suit pocket, scrolled for a few seconds, and began to read. Olivia Marie Bennett, 27 years old, born in Southie. An unfinished bachelor's degree in education at Boston University, dropped out in your 3rd year after losing your family. Father, mother, and younger sister Sophie Bennett, 8 years old, killed in a car accident 2 years ago. No surviving relatives, no close friends, no romantic relationships. The blood in Olivia's veins turned to ice. She stood there, stunned, as Dominic continued in the same tone a man might use to read a weather report. Credit score 532. Credit card debt $12,000. Favorite coffee shop is the little place on L Street. Vanilla latte every Sunday morning back when you could afford it. Childhood dog named Biscuit, a beagle, died when you were 14. He looked up, gray eyes driving straight into hers. "I know everything about you, Olivia Bennett. I ran you the first day you stepped into my house. Everyone who enters here is vetted. It is standard procedure." Olivia could not speak. She only stood there, feeling as if she had been stripped bare. Every secret, every grief, every failure laid open in front of this man. "Do you know what that means?" Dominic's voice dropped, almost a whisper. "It means no one in this world will remember if you disappear. No one will look for you. No one will ask questions. You are completely alone in this world, Olivia Bennett. And you just broke a rule in my house." The words hung in the air like a scythe. Olivia felt her knees threaten to give out, felt tears rising, but she bit down hard and forced herself to stand. She would not cry in front of him. She would not show weakness, even if these were the last minutes of her life. But instead of calling for guards, instead of delivering a final threat, Dominic tilted his head and asked a question Olivia had not expected. "So why did you not run?" His voice was still cold, but there was something different in those gray eyes now. Curiosity, maybe, or something deeper Olivia could not name. "You know who I am. You know what I can do. You are standing in my house, holding my daughter's toy, and you know no one will remember if you vanish. So why are you still standing here? Why did you not run when you had the chance?" The question hung in the air, and Olivia realized she did not have an answer. Why did she not run? Why was she still standing here, in a pink room where stuffed animals sat in neat rows, facing a man who could make her disappear and no one would ever know? Maybe she was too tired to be afraid. Maybe the last 2 years had taken everything she had, and death no longer frightened her the way loneliness did. Or maybe, deep down, she knew Lily's crying had touched something inside her that she thought had died with Sophie. "I do not know, sir," Olivia finally said, her voice gone rough. "I only know I heard a child in pain, and I could not walk away, no matter what that meant." Dominic did not speak. He turned his back to her, walked to the window, and looked out at the garden below. Late afternoon sunlight slipped through the thin curtains, drawing pale lines across his black suit, but it did nothing to soften the darkness that clung to him. The silence stretched so long Olivia began to wonder if he had forgotten she was there. Then Dominic spoke, and his voice changed completely. No coldness, no threat, only exhaustion, and something that sounded like pain buried for too long. "She does not speak," he said quietly, still staring out the window. 18 months now, since her mother died. Olivia did not move. She hardly breathed, afraid any sound might shatter this moment. Dominic Callahan, the feared mafia boss, was opening himself to a cleaner he had just threatened, and Olivia knew, by the survival instinct honed by 2 years of being alone, that he did not do this with anyone. "The doctors say she is high-functioning autistic," Dominic went on, his voice heavy. "The trauma after losing her mother made everything worse. They gave me all the terms, all the diagnoses, all the treatment plans." He paused, drew a slow breath. "I tried everything. Speech specialists, child psychologists, behavioral therapists, the best in their fields. flown in from all over the world. Money was not an issue. Time was not an issue. I did everything I could. He turned to look at Olivia, and in those gray eyes, she saw something that tightened her chest. Desperation, helplessness, the pain of a father watching his daughter sink while he stood on the shore with empty hands. Nothing worked, he said, each word forced out. She withdrew into her own world, built walls no one could break through. She follows routines, she complies. But she does not talk, not really. Only a few isolated words when she is pushed, and even those sound like they have to be pulled out with pliers. Dominic walked toward Olivia and stopped in front of her. He was almost a head taller, and this closeness should have terrified her, but somehow all she felt was sadness. Sadness for this man, for the small child in the rainbow room, for the grief they were both carrying. "And then you walked in," he said, his voice like he was describing a miracle he did not dare believe was real. "A cleaning girl I did not even know I had hired, mopping floors on an ordinary Tuesday. You heard her crying, and instead of walking away like any sane person would, you opened the door and stepped inside." He stopped, swallowing hard, as if the next words were too heavy to say. "And in 10 minutes, less than 10 minutes, she spoke to you. Not a few scattered words, full sentences, real thoughts, real feelings. She shared Mr. Whiskers." He gestured at the stuffed rabbit Olivia was still holding. "Do you know what that rabbit is? It was the last gift my wife gave Lily. 1 week before Catherine died. She sleeps with it every night, holds it whenever she is afraid, and never, not once in 18 months, has she allowed anyone else to touch it. Not me, not the doctors, not anyone." Dominic's gray eyes pinned Olivia's, and there was something in that stare so intense she could not look away. "Until today," he said softly. "Until you." Olivia looked down at the rabbit in her hands, soft gray fur, pink ears worn slightly thin from being held too much, and she understood. She understood why Maggie Reeves had gone white, why Dominic Callahan was standing here, talking to a cleaner instead of ordering a guard to throw her out. Lily had not just spoken to her. Lily had trusted her with the most precious thing she owned. And for a father who had been desperate for 18 months, that was a miracle. "How did you do it?" Dominic asked, his voice rough with emotion he was trying to hold back. "What did you do that all those experts could not? What did you say? What did you do? What kind of magic did you have? That in 10 minutes you reached what 18 months of therapy could not even touch?" Olivia lifted her gaze, and for the first time since Dominic Callahan stepped into this room, she did not feel afraid, only sadness, and understanding, and the memory of another little girl with brown eyes and a bright smile Olivia would never see again. "My sister," she whispered, and her voice trembled as the memories surged. "My sister was like that too." The words slipped out of Olivia's mouth before she could stop them, and instantly it felt as if someone had thrown open a door she had fought to keep locked for 2 years. Her sister, Sophie. That name still hurt like a wound that would not close, still sharp as the shards of glass from that fateful night. Dominic did not say anything. He only stood there and waited, gray eyes watching her with a patience she would never have believed a man like him could possess. And maybe it was that silence, the fact that he did not press her, did not demand, did not rush her, that made Olivia open up. "Sophie was autistic," she began, her voice so soft it was as if speaking louder might break something fragile inside her. "She was diagnosed when she was 5, the same age Lily is now. My parents did not know what to do. They loved her with their whole hearts, but love is not enough when you do not understand the language of the person you love." Olivia walked to the window, standing beside the place Dominic had been, looking out at the garden she had never been allowed to step into. The late afternoon light was warm and gold, but she felt cold, cold from the inside, from the memories rising like a tide. "I was 17 when Sophie was born," she continued. "I remember holding her for the first time, so small and perfect, and I swore I would protect her from everything. But how do you protect someone from the world itself when the world was not built for them?" "Sophie did not like to be touched," Olivia said, and her voice warmed as the image of her sister came into focus. "She hated surprise hugs. She hated when people patted her head without asking first. Clothing tags bothered her so much she would scream and cry. Loud sounds made her cover her ears and rock. And people kept trying to fix her, kept trying to force her to be normal, without understanding that she did not need fixing. She only needed to be understood." Olivia turned back to Dominic, and she saw him listening with absolute focus, as if every word she spoke was a clue to a treasure he had been searching for 18 months. "I was the only one who learned her language," she said. "Not because I was smarter than my parents or the specialists, because I took the time to watch instead of trying to change her. I learned to recognize when she needed space, when she needed presence, when she wanted to share but could not find the words. I learned to ask instead of assume, to wait instead of push, to respect her boundaries instead of treating them like walls that had to be broken down. Olivia's voice caught, and she had to stop for a moment to steady herself. Mr. Whiskers in her hands suddenly felt heavier, as if the stuffed rabbit carried the weight of everything she had lost. Sophie had a teddy bear named Mr. Buttons, she whispered, brown, with one ear worn thin because she would rub it when she was anxious. She never let anyone touch it. Never. Until one night, when I cried because my first boyfriend broke up with me. She brought Mr. Buttons and placed him in my hands. She did not say anything. She just sat beside me in silence. But I understood. That was how she told me she loved me. Tears came before Olivia could stop them, sliding down her cheeks and falling into Mr. Whiskers' soft fur. She did not wipe them away. She did not hide them. In front of this man, in this room, she no longer had the strength to pretend she was strong. Then the accident happened, she said, her voice breaking into pieces. A rainy night. My father was driving. My mother was in the passenger seat. Sophie was in the back seat with Mr. Buttons. I was supposed to be there. I should have gone with them. But I stayed at school to finish a group project. A meaningless project I cannot even remember now. Olivia drew a shaking breath, raw with pain. By the time I got the call, they were gone. All three of them. And I was left alone with the knowledge of how to love someone who is different, but with no one left to love. She looked up and met Dominic's gray eyes, and in that gaze she found understanding. Not pity, not empty sympathy. Real understanding. The kind that only comes from someone who has lost something precious too. Until today, she whispered. Until I heard Lily crying, and I recognized the language. A language I learned for 10 years. A language I thought I would never get to use again. The room fell into silence after Olivia's confession. But it was no longer the threatening kind of silence from before. It was the silence of two strangers who had just realized they spoke the same language. The language of loss and pain that not everyone knows how to hear. Dominic stood motionless, gray eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made Olivia feel as if he were looking straight through her, seeing every invisible scar 2 years of loneliness had carved into her soul. Then he did something she did not expect. He walked to Lily's small bed, sat down on the edge, and suddenly he looked like an ordinary man instead of a feared mafia boss. His shoulders sagged, the tension drained from his body, and when he spoke, his voice carried the exhaustion of someone who had been fighting too long without seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I have hired 17 people in the last 18 months, he said quietly. Nannies, tutors, specialists, companions. Every one of them had the right degrees, the training, the experience working with autistic children, and every one of them failed. Not because they did not try, because they tried the wrong way. He lifted his gaze to Olivia, and there was something fragile in his eyes, something breakable, utterly at odds with the terrifying image he had built for the world. They came here with one goal, he went on, to fix Lily, to make her more normal, more talkative, more able to fit in. They had methods and techniques and progress charts, but Lily is not a problem to be solved. She is a person who needs to be understood, and none of them understood that. Dominic stood and walked toward Olivia with a new decisiveness. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could smell cedar and a faint trace of smoke in his suit, close enough that she could see the fine lines at the corners of his eyes, carved deeper by stress. I want you to work for me, he said, and it no longer sounded like a request, almost like a plea. Not cleaning, being with Lily, becoming her companion. Olivia opened her mouth to speak, but Dominic lifted a hand to stop her. Triple your current pay, he continued. You will have your own room in this house, right next to Lily's. You will eat with us, live with us. Your only job is to give my daughter your time, help her feel safe, help her open up, help her find the voice she buried 18 months ago. I am not a specialist, Olivia said, her voice trembling slightly. I do not have a degree. I do not have certifications. I do not have anything that proves I can do what you are asking. I am just a cleaning girl who dropped out. You are the person my daughter trusts, Dominic replied, his voice firm. In 10 minutes, you did what 17 trained people could not do in 18 months. You speak her language. You understand how to respect her boundaries. You know when to ask and when to wait. That is the only qualification I need. Olivia looked down at Mr. Whiskers in her hands, the soft fur, the pink ears slightly worn. She thought of Sophie, of the years she spent learning how to love her sister in the way Sophie needed to be loved. She thought of the shabby apartment with the eviction notice taped to the door. She thought of the empty future waiting for her if she said no, and the uncertain future waiting if she said yes. And if I fail, she asked softly, if today was just luck, if I cannot help Lily the way you hope, then you fail, Dominic said bluntly. But at least you tried. And you tried the right way. That is more than most people have ever done. He stepped closer, his voice dropping into something nearly a whisper. But I need to warn you about one thing. If you say yes, you will step into my world. And my world is not safe. If you hurt my daughter, if you betray her trust, if you use her in any way. He paused, and his gray eyes darkened. There will be nowhere on this earth you can hide that I will not find you. The threat hung in the air, cold and unmistakable. But before Olivia could react, the door burst open, and Lily ran in like a small gust of wind. The little girl went straight to Olivia, wrapped her tiny arms around Olivia's legs, and looked up with wide brown eyes full of hope and fear. You are not going, are you? Lily asked, her voice trembling. Papa is not sending you away, is he? You will stay with me, will you? Olivia looked down at the child, then up at Dominic, then down again. And in that moment, she knew her answer, no matter what it meant. No, sweetheart, she whispered, kneeling so she was level with Lily's eyes. I am staying. I will be here with you. The guest room Olivia was shown to was larger than her entire old apartment put together. The walls were painted a pale cream. A double bed sat there with sheets so white they looked like clouds. A wide window faced the garden she had only ever watched from a distance, while wiping fingerprints off the glass. A solid oak wardrobe stood in the corner, empty and waiting. Beside it was a vanity with a large mirror that reflected a girl Olivia barely recognized. Chestnut brown hair gone wild, green eyes swollen and red from crying. A wrinkled cleaning uniform, worn through a workday that had turned into an earthquake. 2 suitcases and 3 cardboard boxes sat quietly beside the bed, holding everything she owned in this world. Seeing them huddled in the middle of such a luxurious room, Olivia felt an ache of shame. They looked pathetic. This was all that remained of 27 years of her life. A few old sets of clothes, college textbooks she could not bring herself to throw away, family photos in cracked frames, and her grandmother's silver necklace, the only thing of value she had kept even after selling everything else just to survive. She sat on the edge of the bed, feeling a mattress so soft it did not seem real, and tried to process everything that had happened in one day. This morning she had been an anonymous cleaning girl, worrying about rent and praying she would not be fired. Now she was sitting in a MafiaBoss's mansion, being asked to become his daughter's companion, and she had no idea what she was doing. A light knock pulled her out of her thoughts. Olivia. Lily's voice came through the thick wooden door. Can I come in? Olivia wiped her face quickly and stood. Come in, sweetheart. The door opened, and Lily appeared in purple pajamas printed with stars, her black hair taken out of its 2 braids and falling loose to her shoulders. She stood in the doorway with her hands laced together in front of her chest, wide brown eyes studying the room as if she were memorizing every detail. Can I come sit inside? Lily asked, and Olivia realized the little girl was doing exactly what Olivia had done with her earlier, asking permission first, respecting someone else's space. Of course, Olivia smiled, stepping back to make room for her. This is going to be your home too. Lily walked in with careful steps, circling the room, brushing her fingers lightly over the curtains, the bed frame, the surface of the vanity. She stopped in front of Olivia's luggage and tilted her head, observing. You have so little stuff, she commented, not judging, only noticing. I do not like having a lot of things, Olivia said gently, lowering herself to the floor so she was level with Lily's eyes. Or maybe I have lost most of everything. The little girl looked at her. You lost most of everything, she asked bluntly. A bit of both, Olivia admitted. Lily nodded as if that made perfect sense. Then she sat down across from Olivia, legs folded, hands placed neatly on her lap. Are you scared? Lily asked. Here. With Papa. With me. Olivia weighed her answer. She could lie. She could pretend to be strong. But she had learned that with children like Lily, the truth was the only real choice. Yes, she confessed. New things are scary. My brain does not like new things because I do not know what is going to happen. Lily's eyes brightened. Mine too, she said, sounding startled, as if she had just found an ally. Everyone keeps saying I have to adapt, I have to be flexible. But my brain does not work like that. My brain likes to know everything ahead of time. I understand. Olivia nodded. Sophie was like that too. They sat in silence for a while, but it was comfortable silence, the kind that did not need to be filled. Then Lily pulled a single puzzle piece from her pajama pocket and placed it in Olivia's hand. So you will not forget me, Lily said solemnly. When you miss Sophie, you can look at it and remember you are not alone anymore. Olivia stared down at the small piece in her palm, one corner of the animated princess picture Lily had finished that afternoon, and she felt tears rise again. This time not from sorrow, from something warm and delicate beginning to spark in her chest. "Thank you, Lily," she whispered. "I will keep it very safe." That night, Olivia lay in the softest bed she had ever known. One hand closed around the tiny puzzle piece in her grandmother's necklace, and for the first time in 2 years, she slept without nightmares. 6 o'clock the next evening, Olivia stood in front of the mirror in the only navy dress she owned. The dress she had bought for job interviews that never worked out. She had put it on and taken it off 3 times, and each time it felt too cheap, too old, too wrong for the world she had just stepped into. Dinner at 6. Comfortable clothes. That was all Maggie Reeves had told her before walking away, her eyes still full of suspicion. But what did comfortable even mean in a mafia boss's house? Olivia had no answer. She had seen Dominic's suits. Each one probably cost more than a full year of her rent. Under the crystal light, her dress suddenly looked even more pitiful. A soft knock pulled her out of her quiet panic. "Olivia," Lily's voice came through the door. "Papa told me to come get you. Are you ready?" Olivia drew a slow breath, smoothed the fabric one last time, and opened the door. Lily stood there in a pale pink dress with butterflies embroidered along the hem, black hair braided neatly into 2 plaits, brown eyes bright as she looked Olivia over. "You look so pretty," Lily said, completely sincere. "This blue matches your eyes." "Thank you, sweetheart." Olivia smiled, her heart slowing down a little. "You look beautiful too. Those butterflies are adorable." "Mama bought it for me," Lily said calmly, as if she were talking about the weather. "Before Mama went far away. I like it because each butterfly has exactly 6 legs. People draw butterflies with 4 legs, but butterflies really have 6. Whoever made this dress knew that. I like people who know the right things." Olivia did not know what to say. She only nodded and let Lily take her hand. The little hand was dry and cool, the fingers tightening lightly around Olivia's, as if Lily feared she might disappear the moment she let go. They walked down the long hallways, down the grand staircase Olivia had only ever cleaned, never truly traveled, and finally reached the dining room. The room was smaller than Olivia expected. Cozy, warmed by the flicker of candles and an oak table set for 4. Dominic sat at the head of the table, but he looked nothing like he had the day before. The suit was gone, replaced by a black shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing strong forearms and a tattoo Olivia could not quite make out. His hair was slightly mussed, as if he had run a hand through it too many times, and his gray eyes were no longer winter storm cold. He looked tired. He looked human. "Olivia," he stood as she entered, an old-fashioned courtesy she never would have expected. "Sit here." He indicated the chair to his right. "Lily sits on my left. Maggie will sit across." Olivia sat, feeling like she had walked into a play without knowing the script. Lily climbed onto the chair beside her at once, legs swinging because her feet did not reach the floor, and launched straight into butterflies. "Papa, did you know?" "I told Olivia, but I want to tell you too. There are more than 20,000 kinds of butterflies in the world. 20,000. And they taste with their feet. Feet, Papa. Can you imagine? You stand on something and you know right away if it tastes good." "That sounds disgusting," Dominic said gravely. But Olivia saw the faintest lift at the corner of his mouth. "Not disgusting," Lily objected. "Efficient. They land on something and they know immediately if it is food. Saves time." She turned to Olivia, radiant. "Olivia did not know that. I taught her." "You are very smart," Dominic said. He looked at his daughter, then at Olivia, and something shifted in his gaze. No longer cold appraisal. Something closer to amazement, to hope, to pain easing by a fraction. Dinner moved forward to the steady soundtrack of Lily's voice, butterflies and puzzles, and the patterns she found in everything around her. Maggie sat across the table, silent, watching with a complicated expression Olivia could not read. Dominic asked his daughter questions with endless patience, never interrupting, never sounding bored, even though this was probably the 100th time he had heard about butterflies. And Olivia sat there in the middle of this strange world, watching the feared mafia boss turn into an ordinary father trying so hard to reach his child. And she realized something that softened her heart. No matter what her reason tried to warn her, Dominic Callahan was not the monster she had imagined. He was a desperate father, drowning in grief for his lost wife and helpless as he watched his daughter slip out of reach. And somehow, Olivia had become the life raft they were both clinging to. After dinner, Olivia meant to return to her room, to give them their own space as a family. But Lily held tight to her hand and would not let go. "Olivia has to stay and listen to Papa read," the little girl declared, her voice carrying the urgent insistence of a child who feared everything would change if Olivia looked away for even a second. "You have to stay." Olivia glanced at Dominic, unsure whether she was intruding on something private between father and daughter, but he only gave a small nod, his gray eyes softening in a way that startled her. "If Olivia wants to stay, she is welcome," he said, his voice low and warmer than she had ever heard it. And so Olivia witnessed Lily's bedtime routine for the first time. It was like a perfectly choreographed dance. Every step in order. Every step unchangeable. 7:30. Lily went into the bathroom. Dominic had already prepared the water at the exact temperature. Not too hot, not too cold, with just enough bubbles to form a thin layer across the surface. Lily bathed for exactly 15 minutes. No more and no less. And Dominic stood outside the door, waiting with a white towel that had been warmed in advance. 15 minutes to 8, Lily brushed her teeth. Exactly 2 minutes. She had a small pink hourglass to measure the time, and she did not stop until the last grain of sand fell. Dominic stood beside her, patiently waiting, not rushing her, not checking a watch, as if his daughter's 2 minutes of brushing were the most important minutes of the day. 8 o'clock, pajamas. Lily put on the purple pajamas with stars, but not just any pair would do. They had to be washed with a specific fabric softener. They had to be air-dried, not machine-dried. They had to be folded a certain way. Dominic knew all of it. He knew because he had learned, because he had watched, because he had memorized every smallest detail about his daughter, even though his world was filled with life and death decisions and enemies hiding in the dark. 8:15. Lily climbed into bed. 7 stuffed animals were arranged in a precise order. Mr. Whiskers lay right beside the pillow. The blanket had to be pulled up to exactly her chest, not higher, not lower. And then came the part Olivia had not been prepared for. Dominic sat on the edge of the bed, took an old book with a worn spine from the nightstand shelf, and began to read. His voice changed completely, no longer the deep, commanding voice of a mafia boss. It became the voice of a father, warm, gentle, and threaded with different tones for each character. The brave little mouse spoke in a high, eager voice. The sly old cat spoke in a low voice that stretched out each word. The kind sparrow spoke in a bright voice, quick and light. Lily lay still, brown eyes growing heavy, but her mouth curved into a small smile each time Dominic shifted his voice. And Olivia stood in the corner of the room, arms folded against her chest, feeling as if she were witnessing something too private, too sacred for an outsider like her to see. When Lily drifted to sleep, Dominic did not stop. He read the entire story, every word, every sentence, as if the promise to his daughter mattered more than whether she could still hear him. Then he set the book down gently, bent to kiss Lily's forehead, and pulled the blanket up just a little more, even though it was already in the correct place. Every night, he said softly as he stood, his voice still holding a trace of that tenderness. The same book, the same reading, the same order. For 18 months, he looked at Olivia, and in those gray eyes was a pain he did not bother to hide. This is the only way I know how to keep her close to me, even when she does not speak to me, even when she looks at me like I am a stranger. He stepped out of the room, then paused in the doorway. Do you have time, Olivia? I want to talk. Olivia followed Dominic through the dim hallways, their footsteps echoing on the patterned marble in the heavy silence. He led her to a room in the east wing of the estate, somewhere she'd never set foot in during her 3 weeks of work. His study, black oak, cognac-colored leather, books filling every wall from floor to ceiling. A small bar in the corner stocked with bottles Olivia guessed cost more than a month of her old wages. Dominic went to the bar, poured 2 glasses of amber whiskey, and handed one to her. Olivia stared at the glass in her hand, hesitating. I don't really drink, she admitted. Tonight you do, he said. Not an order, almost advice. You'll need it. She took a small sip. The liquid burned down her throat, then spread a pleasant warmth through her chest. Olivia sat in the leather chair across from his desk. Dominic stood by the window, looking out into the darkness with his drink in hand. Tell me about Sophie, he said, his voice low, distant. Not the sad parts, the things that helped her, the things that made it easier. I want to learn. Olivia looked down at her glass, turning it gently so the whiskey swirled in a slow circle. Memories of Sophie rose like a tide, but this time it wasn't only pain, there were warm moments too. Lessons she'd learned day by day, loving her sister the way Sophie needed to be loved. Sophie needed predictability. She began, her voice slow, as if flipping through an old book in her mind. She needed to know what would happen ahead of time. If anything changed, even something small, she needed warning and an explanation. Not just saying we're going somewhere, Olivia continued, but saying we're going to the grocery store because we're out of milk. We'll be there about 30 minutes, and then we'll come home, and you can do your puzzle. Dominic turned to look at her, gray eyes fixed, listening. Lily is the same, he said. Any change in routine makes her panic. Once a nanny switched the brand of body wash, and Lily didn't sleep all night. Olivia nodded. Sophie hated clothing tags. she went on. They bothered her so much she'd scratch her own skin just to escape the sensation. Loud noises, 2 vacuum cleaners, car horns, sudden laughter from a group of people. For her, those sounds weren't just loud. They hurt. Literally hurt like needles in her ears. "Lily can't stand the vacuum," Dominic murmured. "That's why your shifts were scheduled when she was out at therapy. You were humming that day, and we didn't turn the vacuum on. That was the first time Lily heard you." End quote. Olivia remembered, and a piece of the puzzle slid into place. "Noise-canceling headphones can help," she said. "Sophie refused them at first because the pressure felt wrong. But my parents found a softer band, and Sophie got to decorate them with stickers. Once they became hers, she wore them." Dominic pulled out his phone and typed quickly, the practiced motion of someone used to collecting important information. "Anything else?" he asked. "Sophie didn't like people trying to fix her," Olivia said, her voice carrying an old sadness. "She knew she was different. She didn't need to be reminded of it every day. What she needed was to be accepted, as she was not a more normal version other people wanted." Dominic was quiet for a long moment. His glass had emptied, but he didn't pour another. "Lily doesn't fight," he said at last. His voice weighted. "She follows everything, does what she's told, never says no. People think that's progress." His jaw tightened. "But I know it's surrender. She's been forced for so long that she stopped fighting altogether." "That's learned behavior," Olivia said softly. 18 months of being normalized taught Lily that compliance is easier than resisting. She hesitated, then added gently, "But it can change. Now she has language. Now she has someone who understands. You have to be ready for her to start saying no." "I can't. I want her to say no," Dominic said, sudden intensity flaring in his eyes. "I want her angry. I want her demanding. I want her uncomfortable. I want her alive, Olivia." His voice roughened. "Not just existing." He stepped closer, stopping beside the chair she sat in, and for the first time Olivia didn't see a mafia boss or a desperate father. She saw a man trying to find his way in the dark. "Catherine was an arranged marriage," he said quietly, as if confessing something he'd never told anyone. "Her family needed protection. I needed legitimacy. We didn't love each other at first." His gaze dropped, something tightening in his throat. "But Lily changed everything. Suddenly we weren't playing roles anymore. We were parents. We were a family." His voice caught. "Then Kat got sick, and Lily started to withdraw. And when Kat died, she shut the door completely." ATM. He stared out at the night again, as if it held answers. "I didn't know how to open it." Then his phone vibrated in his pocket, sharp, intrusive, shattering the moment. Dominic checked the screen, and Olivia watched the change happen right in front of her. His gray eyes iced over, his jaw locked, his shoulders squared. The mafia boss returned, wiping away the vulnerable father she'd just glimpsed. He answered in rapid Italian, hard and sharp, his voice like steel. Olivia didn't understand a word, but she understood the danger in every syllable. When he ended the call, he didn't look at her. "Go rest, Olivia," he said, his tone completely different now. "Tomorrow will be long." And Olivia knew the conversation was over. 3 weeks passed like a dream Olivia did not dare believe was real. Every day began the same way. Breakfast at 8 o'clock with Lily in the small, cozy dining room. The same cereal, the same milk, the same pink bowl, with a rabbit printed at the bottom. Lily loved watching the rabbit slowly appear as she finished the cereal, and every morning she squealed as if it were the first time. "The rabbit! Olivia, look! The rabbit is smiling." After breakfast came free time, the stretch of hours when Lily led Olivia into the child's world. They sat on the floor of Lily's room for hours, and Olivia learned how Lily arranged her toys by color, then by size, then by shape. She learned about the patterns Lily saw in everything, from the weave of the carpet to the shapes of clouds in the sky. She learned the complicated stories Lily built for her stuffed animals, with rules that only Lily understood. In the afternoons, they worked on puzzles, read books, took walks in the garden that Olivia had once only been allowed to admire from far away. Lily would stop in front of each flower, count its petals, sort it by color, memorize the exact location of each bloom, as if she were drawing a map to hidden treasure. She spoke more with each passing day. Not in an endless stream like other children, but enough to tell Olivia what she saw, what she thought, what she felt. One afternoon, as they sat beside the koi pond in the garden, Lily suddenly asked a question that made Olivia go still. "Why do people lie, Olivia?" "As why?" Olivia looked at her, choosing her words carefully. "There are many reasons. Sometimes because they are afraid. Sometimes because they think the truth will hurt someone. Sometimes because they want something they cannot get by being honest." Lily dropped a small piece of food into the pond and watched the fish rush toward it. "Papa lies," she said. Her voice neither sad nor happy, simply stating a fact. "When someone calls, Papa says things that are not true. I know because Papa's voice changes. Harder. And Papa's eyes do not smile the way they do when Papa talks to me." Olivia's heart began to beat faster, and she did not know how to answer. "Papa's work is very complicated," she said slowly. "Sometimes grown-ups have to say things to keep the people they love safe, even when those things are not completely true." Lily tilted her head, thinking, "Like when you told me the medicine tastes like strawberry, but really it tastes like metal and fake sweet." Olivia gave a quiet little laugh, even though the question made her feel a bit ashamed. "Yes, I am sorry about that. It is okay." Lily dropped another piece of food into the pond. "You lied because you wanted me to take the medicine. You wanted to help me. That is different from lying to hurt someone." 2. She turned to Olivia, with brown eyes far too clear-sighted for a child who was 5 years old. "Does Papa lie to hurt someone?" Olivia did not know how to answer. She did not know what Dominic Callahan did when he disappeared into secret meetings or phone calls spoken in Italian. She did not want to know, but she could not lie to Lily. "I do not know, sweetheart," she admitted. "That is a question you have to ask Papa." Lily nodded, as if she had already expected that answer. "I cannot ask Papa," she said. "It will make Papa sad. And Papa is already sad. I saw Papa cry in the office when Papa thought no one could hear." She looked back at the fish, her voice as light as wind. "Papa thinks I do not notice. But I notice everything. I just do not know what to do with the things I notice." Olivia felt her heart crack a little. This small child, trapped inside a world she did not fully understand, was carrying pain that even adults did not know how to handle. Olivia pulled Lily into her arms, and for the first time, Lily did not stiffen or pull away. Lily leaned into Olivia, small and warm, and they stayed like that for a long time, watching the fish draw endless circles beneath the surface of the water. The phone in Olivia's pocket vibrated. A text message from the number she had memorized. "My office, right now." Olivia looked down at Lily, then looked at the message, and she knew something had changed. Olivia left Lily with Mrs. Patterson in the garden, then hurried to Dominic's office, her heart beating out of rhythm with every step. She did not know what was waiting for her. But that short, urgent message did not promise anything good. When she pushed the door open and stepped inside, she saw Dominic standing by the window with his back to her, shoulders drawn tight like a string pulled to the point of snapping. He was still wearing his black suit, as always, but something in the way he held himself told Olivia he was fighting to keep his anger contained. "Close the door," he said without turning around, his voice low, dangerous. Olivia did as she was told, then stood still and waited. The silence stretched long enough that she began to wonder if she had done something wrong, if she had accidentally broken a rule she did not even know existed. Then Dominic turned, and she saw his face flushed with anger, his gray eyes lit like a storm about to break. "I just got a call from Dr. Shaw," he said, each word sounding as if it were ground through his teeth. "She wants to schedule another evaluation for Lily. Says it has been 3 weeks since the last therapy session, and the hospital's procedure requires monthly check-ins for patients like Lily." Olivia blinked, not understanding why this would make him so furious. But before she could ask, Dominic went on, his voice growing more bitter. "She is concerned that stopping therapy could harm Lily's development. She said that companionship without expertise," he repeated the phrase with open contempt, "cannot replace professional intervention. She suggested that perhaps my decision is being influenced by desperation and false hope." Olivia felt as if she had been slapped. Companionship without expertise. That was how Dr. Shaw described what Olivia had been doing with Lily. The long hours on the floor working puzzles, the conversations about butterflies and patterns, the quiet moments beside the koi pond, all of it reduced to a single phrase, heavy with disdain. "I'm not trying to replace anyone," Olivia said softly, her voice trembling a little. "I never thought I could replace the professionals. I know I cannot." "I know. I do know." Dominic stepped closer, and the fury in his eyes eased slightly when he saw the hurt on her face. "She is wrong. Completely wrong. In 3 weeks with you, Lily has spoken more than in 18 months of therapy put together. She has laughed more, slept better, panicked less. You have done what 17 people with every credential in the world could not do." He stopped right in front of her, close enough that she could see the cords standing out in his neck from strain. "But she is not entirely wrong about one thing," he said, his voice lowering. "You do not have an official degree. And in our world, degrees are everything. If someone, social services, my rivals, anyone at all, decides to question the way I am raising Lily, you will be the first weakness they aim for. Olivia understood. She was no longer an anonymous cleaning girl. She had stepped into Dominic Callahan's world, and in that world, everything could be used as a weapon. So what do you want me to do? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Leave. No. Dominic shook his head, decisive. I want you to go to school. He walked to his desk, picked up a thick folder, and handed it to her. An accelerated program in child development, specializing in autism spectrum disorder. Boston University. 18 months if you study full-time, but you can study while you take care of Lily. Study during her nap time, after she goes to sleep. In his bis. Olivia opened the folder with shaking hands. The application had already been filled out. The acceptance letter had already been signed. The tuition had already been paid. Everything, from textbooks to course materials, had been prepared. Why? She asked, her voice catching. Why are you doing this? Because I need to protect you, Dominic said, and there was something in his voice that made Olivia's heart beat faster. Because people are talking. Questions are being asked about a girl with no expertise living in my house and caring for my daughter. I cannot let them use you against Lily. He stepped closer, and Olivia felt her breathing turn shallow. The best way to protect you is to make you impossible to question. Your competence, your motives, anything. His voice softened, but the weight of it did not. I want you to have a future, Olivia. A future no one can take from you. Whether you stay here or not. No matter what happens. Day. She looked up, met his gray eyes, and in that gaze she saw more than protection. She saw care, respect, and something more dangerous, something she did not dare name. The folder felt heavy in Olivia's hands, but not as heavy as the emotions swirling in her chest. She stood there, in the middle of the office filled with the scent of oak and leather, looking at the man in front of her and not knowing what to say. Dominic Callahan, the mafia boss that all of Boston feared, had just handed her a future, not because she asked, not because she deserved it, simply because he wanted to protect her. I do not know what to say, Olivia whispered, her voice catching. This is too much. You do not have to do this. You gave me hope, Dominic said, his voice low and sincere, in a way she had never heard from him. For the first time in 18 months. Do you understand what that means? You brought my daughter back from a place I thought I had lost her forever. This is the least I can do. Olivia shook her head, feeling tears rise. I am just a cleaning girl who got lucky, she said, repeating what she had said many times before. I did not do anything special. I just sat down and listened. That is exactly what is special. Dominic stepped toward her, closing the space between them until only a few inches remained. You looked at my daughter like a person, not a problem to solve, not a patient to treat. You saw Lily, and you chose to stay. He stood so close Olivia could smell his cologne, cedarwood and smoke, warm and dangerous. She could see every detail of his face. The faint scar cutting through his right eyebrow. The fine lines at the corners of his eyes. The rough shadow of stubble along his jaw. He looked tired. He looked human. And he was looking at her as if she were the most precious thing he had ever seen, second only to Lily. Olivia. He said her name, and the way he pronounced it sent a shiver through her, slowly, deeply, as if he were tasting each syllable. His hand lifted, and Olivia found herself holding her breath, waiting. His fingers stopped a few millimeters from her cheek, giving off warmth she could feel even without contact. He is hesitating, she realized. This man, who could order someone killed without blinking, was hesitating before touching her. She should step back. She should remind herself he was her employer, that this was a line she should not cross, that stepping into anything with Dominic Callahan meant stepping into a world of darkness and blood. But instead, she tilted her head toward his hand, and when her skin met his, she heard his breath catch. His gray eyes darkened, full of emotions she did not dare name. His thumb brushed lightly over her cheekbone, a gesture so gentle it almost hurt. You are too good for this world, he whispered, his voice rough. Too good for my world. Maybe your world needs more good people, she replied, surprised by the courage in her own voice. He looked at her for a long time, and she saw the battle unfolding in those gray eyes. Wanting and not wanting, longing and fear, hope and guilt. Then he leaned toward her, and Olivia felt her heart stop. The phone rang. The shrill sound sliced through the moment like a knife, and Dominic went still. He closed his eyes for a second, drew in a deep breath, then stepped back. When he opened his eyes, the mask was back. The mafia boss replacing the man she had just glimpsed. I have to take this, he said, his voice cold again. Go rest, Olivia. Tomorrow will be long. She nodded, clutching the folder to her chest, and walked out of the room on trembling legs. When the door closed behind her, she leaned against the wall and tried to steady her breathing. Her skin was still warm where he had touched her, and her heart was falling into an abyss she did not know had a bottom, or not. 6 months had passed since the day Olivia stepped into Lily's rainbow room, and her life had changed in ways she never could have imagined. She studied online at night after Lily fell asleep, textbooks piled high on the desk in her room. She had finished 2 semesters with excellent grades, and her supervising professor called her the most promising student in the program. But more important than anything else, Lily had bloomed like a flower given the right kind of water. The little girl spoke every day, not only with Olivia but with Dominic, with Maggie, even sometimes with the guards posted in the hallway. She still had hard days. She still needed routine and predictability, but the light in those brown eyes was no longer covered by darkness. That afternoon, Olivia and Lily were sitting in the garden, the place that had become their favorite. Lily was counting petals on the roses, her lips moving with each number, when Olivia noticed the change. Black cars began to appear at the gate, not 1 or 2, but 5, lined up one after another like a funeral procession. Guards came from everywhere, more than usual, and this time they did not hide their guns under their jackets. Handguns sat openly in holsters at their hips, and some of them carried rifles. Lily stopped counting. She looked up, her brown eyes sweeping the scene with the sharp observation Olivia had learned to value. "The bad people are here," Lily said, strangely calm. "Papa always worries when the bad people come." Not normal worried, scared worried. Affer. Olivia felt the blood in her body turn cold. "How do you know?" she asked softly. "I notice," Lily answered simply. "When Papa is normal worried, Papa talks less and looks at his phone more. But when Papa is scared worried, Papa checks on me more. Papa asks where I am, what I am doing, if I am safe." She looked toward the black cars now parked in front of the main entrance. "And the guards change, more of them. And their guns are outside instead of inside." End quote. Olivia wanted to say something reassuring, but she could not find the words. The truth was, she was scared too. She had lived in this mansion for 6 months, had grown used to the presence of guards and security cameras, but she had never felt the air this tense. "You stay with me?" Lily asked, and for the first time her voice carried real fear. "Until they go." "I am not going anywhere," Olivia said, pulling the little girl into her arms. "I promise." "Azar." They sat like that in the garden, Lily curled in Olivia's lap, both of them watching the men in black suits step out of the cars. They did not look like Dominic's guards. They looked different. Rougher, more dangerous. And the way they scanned the surroundings was like they were measuring a battlefield instead of a garden. Marcus, Dominic's head of security, appeared beside them like a ghost. "Miss Bennett," he said, his voice low and urgent. "Mr. Callahan wants you and the little one inside. Her room. Do not go out until you are told." Olivia nodded, lifted Lily even though she was getting a little heavy for it now, and followed Marcus into the house. They moved through the familiar hallways, but today everything looked different. Darker, colder, more dangerous. Guards stood at every corner, and Olivia felt their eyes tracking her every step. When they reached Lily's room, Marcus opened the door and stepped aside. "Someone will stand watch outside," he said. "Anything you need, just call. But do not open the door for anyone unless it is me or Mr. Callahan. Anyone. Do you understand?" "I understand," Olivia said, her throat dry and bitter. She carried Lily into the room, set her down on the bed, and tried to keep her voice calm. "We are going to stay here for a while," she said. "Do you want to play something?" "Puzzle," Lily answered, but her voice did not hold its usual excitement. "I want to do puzzles while we wait for the bad people to go." 3 hours. They waited for 3 hours. Olivia sat on the floor with Lily, doing puzzles, reading books, pretending everything was normal, while her heart beat like a war drum, and her ears strained for every sound outside. Sometimes she heard voices in the distance, footsteps, a door closing, but she did not hear gunshots, and she counted that as a good thing. When the black cars finally left, Olivia looked out the window and let out a breath, but the fear did not disappear completely. It only settled, waiting, like a predator in the dark. That night, after Lily had fallen asleep, Dominic appeared in Olivia's doorway. He looked like he had just walked through hell, his suit wrinkled, his hair disheveled, and his gray eyes carrying the shadow of decisions she did not want to know. "Come with me," he said, and it was not a request. Olivia followed Dominic through the dark hallways, not asking where they were going, not asking what had happened in that meeting that had lasted 3 hours. She could feel the tension pouring off him like heat from a fire, and she knew that whatever he was about to tell her, it would change everything. They did not go to his office the way she expected. Instead, Dominic led her up a narrow staircase she had never known existed, through a door hidden behind a wall hanging, and out onto a small balcony that looked down over the back garden. The night was cold and crystal clear, stars glittering overhead as if they knew nothing of the shadowed world below. Olivia stood by the railing, feeling the night wind slide across her skin, and waited. Dominic stood a few steps away, both hands gripping the railing, head bowed as if he were carrying the weight of the entire world on his shoulders. "The Moretti family," he said at last, his voice like gravel underfoot. "They are the ones who came today." Olivia said nothing, only stood still and listened. She had learned that sometimes silence was the most precious gift you could offer someone who was trying to open up. "They want Lily," Dominic went on, each word sounding as if it were forced out of his throat. "An arranged marriage. My daughter to their youngest son. They call it an alliance. They call it protection. But I know what it is. It is a chain. It is how they control me by holding the most precious thing I have." Olivia felt as if someone had punched her in the chest. "She is only 5 years old," she said, her voice shaking with outrage. "Age does not matter to people like them." End quote. Dominic lifted his head, and in the moonlight his face looked carved from stone. "They do not see a child. They see a tool, a pawn, a way to make sure I will never stand against them." He turned to look at her, his gray eyes dark as a sky before a storm. "I told them I would die before I let them touch my daughter, and I meant it. But a threat only works when the person hearing it believes you have the power to carry it out. And the truth is, Olivia, I am not invincible. There are people who want me to fall, people who will use anyone, anything, to make that happen." He fell silent for a moment, as if weighing what to say next. Then he drew in a deep breath, and when he spoke, his voice carried a pain she had never heard from him before. "I lied to you. About how Catherine died." Olivia went rigid, afraid to breathe. Dominic turned his back to her, staring out into the darkness. "I told everyone she died of illness, cancer, fast and unstoppable. That is the official story. That is what the paperwork says. That is what Lily was told." His voice broke on the last words. "But it is a lie." He turned to face her, and Olivia saw tears glittering in his gray eyes, something she never thought she would witness from this man. "Catherine was assassinated," he said, each word torn from his soul. "Because of me. Because of what I am. Because of the enemies I made in my sinful life. They could not reach me, so they reached her. They made it look like sickness, perfect enough that even doctors were fooled. But I knew. I have always known, and that guilt has haunted me every day since." Olivia did not know she had moved, but somehow she was standing right in front of him now, both hands pressed to his chest, feeling his heart pounding hard beneath the fabric of his shirt. "That was not your fault," she said, her voice steady even as something inside her broke for him. "The people who killed her, they are the ones at fault, not you." "I pulled her into this world," Dominic said, his voice rough. "I knew it was dangerous. I knew what could happen. But I was selfish. I wanted a family. I wanted someone to love. And she paid the price for my selfishness." He caught her hands, gripping them tight, as if she were the only lifeline in a storm. "That is why I protect Lily the way I do. I failed Catherine. I cannot fail again. I cannot lose one more person because of what I am." Olivia looked into those gray eyes full of suffering, and she understood. She understood why he built such high walls, why he kept everyone at a safe distance, why he pushed her away every time they came too close. He was afraid, not afraid for himself, afraid for the people he loved. "This puts you in danger," he said, as if reading her thoughts. "You being here, you mattering to Lily, to me." He stopped, swallowed hard. "If they know, if they think you mean something to me, they will not hesitate to use you, just like they used Catherine." Olivia should have been afraid. She should have run. She should have done anything a normal person with a healthy instinct for survival would do. But instead, she lifted her hand and touched his cheek, feeling the rough shadow of his stubble under her palm. "I am not going anywhere," she said, and she knew she meant it with every cell in her body. "I lost everything once already. My parents, my little sister, everything. I know what that pain feels like. And I also know that running does not make it disappear." She looked straight into his eyes, without blinking, without wavering. "You cannot drive me away by frightening me. Not now. Not after everything we have been through. Lily needs me. And maybe," she paused, her heart pounding like a drum, "you need me too." Olivia's words hung in the night air, heavy and true. Dominic looked at her, gray eyes searching her face for something. Perhaps a lie. Perhaps the fear she was trying to hide. Perhaps any sign that she would run the way so many others had. But Olivia did not run. She stood there, her hand still on his cheek, feeling warmth through her palm, and she did not step back even once. "You should run," Dominic said softly, but his voice no longer carried urgency. "You should run far away from me, from this life, from all the darkness I carry." Until it did. "Maybe," Olivia said, her fingers drifting lightly over the scar that cut through his eyebrow. "But I am tired of running. For the past 2 years I have been running from memories, running from pain, running from anyone who tried to come close. And it did not help at all. I was still alone. I was still hurting. I was still only existing instead of living." She stopped, drew in a deep breath to find courage for what she was about to say. "Then I heard Lily crying behind that door, and for the first time in 2 years, I felt like I had a purpose. For the first time I was not just trying to survive the day. I was actually living." She looked straight into his eyes, unhidden. "I do not want to lose that. I do not want to lose Lily. And I do not want to lose you." Dominic inhaled sharply, as if her words had pierced the armor he had built for years. "You do not understand what you are asking for," he said, his voice rough. "Staying with me means living under the eyes of enemies. It means always being on guard, always being afraid, always knowing that at any moment everything could collapse." "Then give me that," Olivia replied, her voice so steady she surprised herself. "I do not want safe. I want real. I want to live, to love, to belong somewhere, no matter how dangerous that place is. I have had enough safety and loneliness. It is empty, it is cold, and it is killing me from the inside." "It's not recess." Dominic closed his eyes, and Olivia saw the battle on his face. Jaw clenched, brow drawn tight, breath heavy and trembling. He was fighting himself, the desire to pull her close, and the instinct to push her away to protect her. "This is a mistake," he whispered. But even as he said it, his hands rose to cradle her face, rough fingers sliding gently into her hair. "This is the biggest mistake I have ever made." "Maybe," Olivia whispered back. "But sometimes mistakes are the best things that ever happened to us." And then the distance between them vanished. Olivia did not know who moved first. Maybe both of them, maybe no one. Maybe the universe simply decided they had waited long enough. His mouth found hers, and the world stopped. The kiss was not gentle the way she had imagined. It was desperate, hungry, carrying the weight of everything they had held back for 6 months. Dominic kissed her as if she were air and he were drowning, as if this were the first time and also the last time, as if he were trying to pack every feeling he did not know how to speak into a single moment. Olivia kissed him back with everything she had, with the loneliness of 2 years lived alone, with the pain of loss, with the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, she had finally found where she belonged. Her hands clutched at his shirt, feeling the hard muscle beneath, feeling his heart pounding wild in answer to her own. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard, forehead to forehead, their breath mingling in the cold night air. "This is a mistake," Dominic said again, but this time there was a smile in his voice. "The most wonderful mistake of my life." Olivia let out a soft laugh, trembling and full of feeling. "Everything has to change," she said, "and maybe this is the beginning." Dominic pulled her into his arms, holding her tight as if he feared she would disappear if he loosened his grip even for a second. And Olivia leaned into him, listening to his heartbeat slowly steady, feeling the warmth of his body push back the night's cold. She knew tomorrow would bring new trials. She knew Dominic's world was still full of danger. She knew the Moretti family was still a threat hanging over their heads. But tonight, in his arms, under a sky full of stars, she allowed herself to believe everything would be okay. "I will protect you," Dominic whispered into her hair. "Both of you, no matter the cost." Olivia looked up at him, and she knew he meant it, with every cell in his body, with every beat of his heart. The next morning, when the first sunlight slipped through Olivia's window, she woke with the feeling that the world had changed completely overnight. Her lips still remembered the kiss, her skin still remembered the warmth of Dominic's arms, and her heart still beat faster than normal whenever she thought of what had happened on the balcony. But along with joy and hope, there was fear. Fear that daylight would dissolve the magic of last night, that Dominic would regret it, that everything would return to the way it had been, with invisible walls and a safe distance. She was getting ready to take Lily to breakfast when there was a knock at the door. When she opened it, Dominic was standing there, not in his familiar black suit, but in a simple white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He looked different, softer, more human, and the way he looked at her, with a warmth and tenderness she had never seen before, confirmed that last night had not been a dream. "We need to talk," he said, his voice deep and serious, "about what happens next." Olivia's heart sank. Here it comes. The part where he says it was a mistake and they should forget it. But instead, Dominic stepped into the room, closed the door, and took her hand. "If you stay, if you choose this path with me, there are things you need to know and agree to." Olivia looked at him, waiting. "First, security," Dominic said, his tone turning firm in a way she recognized as the voice of a boss laying down rules. "You will not go anywhere alone anymore. There will always be a guard with you, wherever you go, whatever you do. I know it will feel suffocating, but it is the only way I can ensure your safety." Olivia nodded. She had expected that. "Second, you will learn self-defense," Dominic continued. "Marcus will train you, not to make you a fighter, but so you know how to react if something happens. How to get out of danger, how to use basic weapons, how to survive." It was more serious than she had imagined, but she still nodded. If that was what it took to be with Dominic and Lily, she would do it. "Third, you will learn the procedures," he said. "Passwords, signals, escape routes. Every room in this house has a hidden exit. You need to know them all. You need to know what to do if someone breaks in, where to take Lily, who to contact." He paused, gray eyes locked on hers. "And finally, you will continue the university program. Not because I doubt your ability, but because you deserve a future no one can take from you. No matter what happens to me, to us, you will have a degree, a career, the ability to stand on your own feet." Olivia felt tears rise, not from sadness, but from emotion. This was how Dominic Callahan loved, not with empty promises or hollow romantic gestures, but with protection, with planning, with making sure the people he loved would be safe and would have a future, even if the world fell apart. "I need you to be strong," he said softly, his hand lifting to brush her cheek, "not dependent. I lost someone because I could not protect her. I cannot let that happen again." Olivia clasped his hand, squeezing tight. "I agree," she said. "All of it. Every condition. If this is how we can be together, I will do it." "Anyone?" Dominic studied her for a long moment, as if searching for any sign of hesitation. When he found none, he leaned in and kissed her gently on the forehead, a tenderness that made her heart melt. "Do not make me regret opening my heart," he whispered. "I promise," she answered. And she knew it was a promise she would keep with her life. Another 6 months passed, and life inside the Callahan mansion found a new rhythm. Olivia woke each morning to Lily's laughter echoing down the hallway, to the smell of coffee from the kitchen, and to a sense of belonging she had once believed she would never find again after losing her family. She had completed her first 2 intensive terms of the university program with excellent grades. Her supervising professor called her the most promising student in the cohort and suggested she write her thesis on personalized approaches for autistic children. She trained in self-defense with Marcus 3 times a week, and even though she never became a warrior, she learned how to get out of dangerous situations, how to use a handgun, how to survive. And more important than anything, Lily had bloomed. The little girl read out loud every day, her voice clear and steady, only sometimes stumbling over difficult words, but always pushing through. She still had hard days. She still needed routine and predictability, but she had learned how to say no, how to show emotions, how to ask for what she needed, instead of suffering in silence. That afternoon, Olivia was sitting in the living room watching Lily read a book to Mr. Whiskers when Dominic walked in. He had changed over the past 6 months, no longer the cold stone wall she met on the first day. He smiled more, touched her more naturally, and sometimes Olivia caught him looking at her and Lily with an expression she could only describe as content. But today something was different in the way he moved. In the slight lift at the corner of his mouth, in the glimmer of light in his gray eyes. He sat down beside Olivia on the sofa, close enough that their shoulders touched, and he did not speak for a moment. "What is it?" Olivia asked softly, not wanting to interrupt Lily, who was reading with fierce concentration. "I have news," Dominic answered, and his voice held something Olivia needed a moment to recognize. Relief. "The Moretti family has backed down." Olivia turned to him, her heart beating faster. "They agreed to respect the territorial boundaries," Dominic went on, gray eyes holding hers. "Lily has been removed from every negotiation. They will never mention arranged marriage again." "How?" Olivia asked, her voice trembling a little because she could not quite believe what she was hearing. "They were reminded," Dominic said, and something dark passed through his eyes, something Olivia had learned not to ask about. "Of what happens to people who threaten what belongs to me." Olivia knew she should be afraid. She knew that vague answer carried violence and blood, things she still chose not to know in detail. But when she looked at Lily, at the little girl smiling at Mr. Whiskers and reading out loud about the adventures of a brave little mouse, she could not find regret in her heart. Lily was safe. That was all that mattered. "She will never be used as a pawn," Dominic said, as if reading Olivia's thoughts. "I made sure of that. No matter what happens to me, she will be protected." Olivia placed her hand over his, squeezing lightly. "Thank you," she whispered, "for fighting for her." "Akshay, I will fight for both of you," he replied, turning his hand to take hers. "Anything, anyone, anytime." They sat like that for a while, hand in hand, watching Lily read with a voice that grew more confident by the page, and Olivia felt something inside her chest open, warm and bright. Hope. Not the fragile hope she had clutched through those first months, afraid it would shatter at any moment, but a steady hope, built on a foundation of love, trust, and commitment. Lily looked up from the book, saw the two adults holding hands, and she smiled. A radiant smile, unhidden, unrestrained, the smile of a child who knew she was loved. "Papa and Olivia are in love," she announced, her voice carrying the satisfaction of someone who had known this for a long time. "I see Papa look at Olivia, like the way Papa looks at Mama in the picture." Dominic let out a soft laugh, warm and rare. "You are very smart, Piccola." "'Kay. I know," Lily said, then returned to her book as if she had just stated the most obvious thing in the world. And maybe, for her, it was. Dominic turned to Olivia, his gray eyes bright with something she had never seen before. "There is one more thing I need to tell you," he said softly, and Olivia's heart began to race. Dominic looked at her for a long time, gray eyes searching her face for something. Olivia could see him hesitating, weighing every word as if they were bullets that could change everything. And maybe they were. Lily was still reading in the corner of the room, her voice steady as she told the story of a brave little mouse's adventure, unaware that the two adults were standing on the edge of a fateful moment. Or maybe she knew, because Lily always knew more than people thought. "I am not good at this," Dominic began, his voice rough, careful. "I have lived my whole life in a world where feelings are weakness, where loving someone means handing your enemies a weapon to use against you. I built walls so high even I do not know how to tear them down." Olivia did not speak, only waited. She had learned that sometimes the best thing she could do was stay quiet and let someone find their way to the words they needed to say. "Then you appeared," Dominic continued, and his voice softened in the way she only heard when he spoke to Lily. "A cleaning girl with hands raw from bleach and eyes so sad it was like you had seen too much suffering for someone so young. You sat on the floor of my daughter's room and did what no one had been able to do in 18 months. You looked at Lily like a person." He stopped, drew in a deep breath. "And I love you for that." Olivia's heart missed a beat. "I love you," Dominic said again, stronger this time, steadier, as if now that the words were spoken he was no longer afraid of them. "I have loved you since the first day, when you knelt at the doorway and asked permission before you stepped inside. When you promised you would not touch Lily's puzzles and you kept that promise. When you told me about Sophie, and I saw your heart break and still keep beating. And it—" He lifted his hand, rough fingers brushing her cheek with a gentleness that did not fit the man the world feared. "I love the way you talk to Lily, as if every word you speak matters. I love the way you look at me, not with fear like everyone else, but with understanding. I love the way you stayed, even knowing what staying means, even knowing how dangerous my world is." Tears slid down Olivia's cheeks, and she did not bother to wipe them away. These were tears of happiness, of being seen, of being loved in a way she thought she would never find again after losing her family. "I do not deserve you," Dominic went on, his voice catching. "I have done terrible things. I have made decisions you could never forgive if you knew the details. I am darkness, and you are light, and I am afraid being with me will dim you." Olivia lifted her hand and placed it over his mouth, stopping him. "I love you too," she said, her voice trembling but certain. "I love you, Dominic Callahan, not in spite of what you are, but because of what you are. Because you are a father who would burn the world for his daughter. Because you are a man who reads stories in different voices for each character, even when Lily is already asleep. Because you gave me a future when I had nothing left." She stepped closer, forehead to forehead. "I love both of you," she whispered. "You and Lily, you are my family now. It's not rated 5. Family," Dominic repeated, and the word left his lips like it was the most sacred thing he had ever spoken. "Family." He pulled her into his arms, holding tight, as if she were everything he needed to keep breathing. And Olivia leaned into him, listening to his heartbeat steady under her ear, feeling his warm breath against her hair. Small footsteps sounded, and then Lily appeared beside them, Mr. Whiskers in her arms, brown eyes bright with unhidden joy. "I knew," she said, her voice full of satisfaction. "I saw Papa looking at Olivia for a long time, like looking at treasure." Dominic laughed, a real laugh, warm and free in a way Olivia had never heard. He bent down and lifted Lily up, settling her on one arm while the other arm still held Olivia. "Olivia is treasure," he told his daughter. "And you are too. Papa's two treasures." Lily tilted her head, thinking. "Then we are family," she declared. "Because family is people who love each other and stay together. And we love each other. And we stay together." Dominic looked at Olivia, gray eyes full of love. "Yes, Piccola. We are family." The next morning, Olivia woke up in the room that had become as familiar as breathing. Sunlight poured through the curtains, painting warm golden lines across the wooden floor. And from somewhere in the house came the sound of Lily's laughter. She lay still for a moment, listening to the sounds of a life she once believed she would never have. Small footsteps running down the hallway. Dominic speaking to his daughter in that deep, warm voice. Mrs. Patterson giving orders to someone in the kitchen. The sounds of a family, her family. She got up and walked to the window, looking out over the garden where she and Lily had spent so many hours. Down there, Dominic was sitting on the stone bench beside the koi pond. Lily curled in his lap with Mr. Whiskers held tight in her arms. Father and daughter were talking about something, and Olivia could see Lily pointing up at the sky, probably counting clouds or explaining a pattern she saw. Dominic listened with endless patience, sometimes nodding, sometimes asking a question that made Lily light up and keep talking. And Olivia realized this was happiness. Not the loud, sparkling kind people see in movies, but the quiet, steady kind, built from small moments like this, from peaceful mornings, from a child's laughter, from the look in the eyes of someone who loves you. She changed quickly and went down to the garden, her steps soft on grass still wet with dew. Lily saw her first, and she immediately slid off her father's lap and ran over. "Olivia," Lily called, arms wide. "You have to hear this. I just told Papa about a new kind of butterfly. This kind can fly 3,000 miles without resting. 3,000 miles. Can you imagine?" Olivia laughed and bent down to hug her. "Wow," she said. "That is a very long way." "So far," Lily nodded vigorously. "But they can do it because they do not give up. Papa said I am like that butterfly. Because I do not give up either." Olivia looked up and met Dominic's gray eyes, watching her with unhidden love. "You are like that butterfly too," he said softly, standing and stepping closer. "You flew a long way to get here, and you did not give up." The three of them stood in the garden under the morning sun, and Olivia felt a wholeness she did not know she had been searching for until she found it. 2 years ago, she had been a desperate orphan girl, drowning in debt, living day to day with no purpose. She had lost everything: her parents, her little sister Sophie, her future, her hope. She had thought her life ended the night the accident happened. But then she heard crying behind a forbidden door, and instead of walking away the way the rules demanded, she chose to stay. She chose to kneel at the threshold and ask a frightened little girl if she could sit there. She chose to listen instead of speak, to ask instead of assume, to respect instead of invade. And that choice changed everything. Sophie once taught her the language of understanding. Lily gave her the chance to use it, and Dominic gave her a new family to love. She looked at the two most important people in her life, the man with the scar through his eyebrow and a heart full of love hidden beneath a dangerous shell, the little girl with brown eyes too clear-sighted for her age, and the ability to see the world in a way no one else could. And she knew this was home, not the luxurious mansion with crystal chandeliers and marble floors, but these two people, the love they shared, the sense of belonging she had searched for through 2 long years. "I love you both," Olivia said, and the words came out as naturally as breath. "I love you so much." "I love you too," Lily answered immediately. "And I love Papa, and I love Mr. Whiskers. But you are second after Papa because Papa was here first." Dominic laughed, warm and free. "I love you too," he said, pulling her into his arms. "Both of you. My treasures." The three of them held each other in the garden, under the warm sunlight of a new day. And Olivia knew that even if the outside world was still full of danger, even if darkness still waited in hidden corners, she had found her light. She had found home. She remembered what Lily had said to her on the first day, when the little girl placed Mr. Whiskers in her hands with trusting eyes. "You asked first. You waited. You understood." Yes, Olivia had understood. At last. completely, fully. And that is the story of the cleaning girl and the silent little angel. A story of love crossing every barrier, of family found where you least expect it, of the strength of understanding and patience, of how sometimes the most beautiful magic begins with something as simple as asking permission before stepping into someone's life. This story gives us a profound lesson about how we treat others, especially those who are different. Sometimes we do not need to fix anyone. We only need to understand them. We do not need to change anyone. We only need to accept them exactly as they are. And sometimes, the most powerful thing we can do is sit down, listen, and ask what they need, instead of assuming we know what is best for them. If you felt this story touch your heart, please press the like button and share so more people can listen. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel so you do not miss moving stories every day. We would really love to know how you feel about this story. Did it remind you of someone in real life? What moment touched you the deepest? Please share with us in the comments below. We always want to hear the feelings that come from deep inside your hearts. Thank you for staying with us until the end of the story. We wish everyone watching this video good health, a joyful life, and days filled with peace and happiness. Goodbye, and we will see you again in the next video.